This is Ken Smith reminding you it happened today, June 15th. But the year was 1215. King John signs the Magna Carta in Runnymede, England, the basis for future democracy. It was on this day, 1775, George Washington is appointed Commander in Chief of the Continental Army, one day after Congress establishes the Army. It was on this day in 1842, John Fremont sets off on his first expedition of the Oregon Trail. He's led by the frontiersman Kit Carson as a guide. It was on this day, 1844, Charles Goodyear patents a process to vulcanize rubber tires. It was on this day, 1864, Robert E. Lee's home in Arlington, Virginia, becomes a military cemetery. It was on this day, 1877, that the first African American graduates from West Point Military Academy. It was on this day, 1907, a researcher publishes the results of his investigation into the recent outbreaks of typhoid in New York. He announces Mary Malone, Typhoid Mary, is the likely source of the outbreak. It was on this day, 1924, J. Edgar Hoover assumes leadership of the FBI. This day, 1965, Bob Dylan records a single, Like a Rolling Stone. It hits number one and is listed as one of the greatest 500 songs of all time. It was on this day, 1986, that the Russian newspaper Pravda announces high-level Chernobyl staff fired. And what was their reason? Stupidity. It was on this day, 1994, Disney's animated musical film, The Lion King, opens in theaters with $42 million. It was on this day, 1997, that British model Naomi Campbell is hospitalized due to drug overdose. It was on this day, 2015, Jeb Bush, governor of Florida, announces that he will run for the U.S. presidency. 2018, physicist Stephen Hawking's ashes are interred in Westminster Abbey between the remains of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. It was just a year ago, 2019, on this day, that the baseball jersey belonging to Babe Ruth becomes the most expensive sports memorabilia when it sells for $5.64 million at an auction in New York City. But that was June 15th in the past. This is June 15th, 2020. The Christian magazine, Christianity Today, calls for churches to pay reparations to Black people, saying repentance is not enough. In Baltimore, a long-term gospel announcer was fatally shot outside her home in a case Baltimore police call a senseless and tragic murder. Tyra Phillips was the announcer for 30 years of Gospel Grace, providing information to the community about church activities during her weekly broadcast. The number of homeless people counted across Los Angeles County jumped 12.7% last month. In Tampa, a fight over directional arrows on the floor of a Goodwill store ended with a pair of shoppers under arrest for battery. According to police, Jenna Sims, 29, was inside the Tampa area thrift store when she got into a confrontation with Paul Turner, 50, over the floor directions, arrows, on the carpet. They fought and were arrested. Liverpool, England. More people are being diagnosed with mental illnesses than ever before. Multiple factors attribute to the rise, not the least of which is the current virus. There are many reasons for the increase. The new study, conducted at the University of Liverpool, has raised eyebrows by concluding that psychiatric diagnoses are scientifically meaningless and worthless as tools to accurately identify and address mental distress. Researchers performed a detailed analysis on 5 of the most important chapters in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorder, DSM. The DSM is considered the definitive guide for mental health professionals and provides descriptions for all mental health problems and their symptoms. The 5 chapters analyzed were bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, and trauma-related disorders. There's so much more to discover the mystery of our own bodies. And so there's good news and bad news and confusing news. And behind it all is the good news that this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is Ken Smith reminding you it happened today, June 15th, 2020.